Access, Director of our Access Agency. Oh, I'm sorry, AJ, you were in the, okay, AJ and then Mr. Bedlack. Mr. Bedlack in the queue, I'm sorry. The name popped up.
Your answer is no.
AJ Faro, representing himself.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of this committee. I want to thank you for having these informational hearings concerning a very difficult issue. It's going to be one of emotion and one of fact as you weather through these, hopefully first of very informational hearings. I'm going to go ahead and introduce myself as AJ LaFaro, but not as myself, but as the chairman of the Maricopa County Republicans. And the reason I do that is that I sat on the floor of the House at the State of the State in January, and I heard our governor speak about what she visioned and what she accomplished and what she wanted to do in her last years as governor. I was amazed, as most of you were. I think both sides of the aisle, both Democrat and Republican, were shocked. We as conservatives shocked that she would even make a recommendation about expanding Obamacare Medicaid. And the Democrats were shocked and elated that she would even entertain that idea. So what I would like to do is indicate that shortly after that, the governor invited every Maricopa County Republican chairman and every legislative district Republican chairman to her offices to visit with us about her plan. She was aggressively doing her full court press around the state with regards to her issues. It was a standing room only meeting. People were actually conferenced in from around the state. Mr. John Arnold and Mr. Betlock made presentations to us with regards to their plan. It was actually very cordial, very interesting meeting. It was open dialogue, good discussion, but as we left, most of the Republican leadership, grassroots leadership here in Arizona, rejected the governor's suggestion and proposal. If we didn't support Obamacare, why would we support Obamacare Medicaid expansion? All right. So on that note, what I would like to do, with your permission, Mr. Chairman, is introduce these 12 documents. The Legislative District, the Maricopa County Republican Committee, Executive Guidance Council, which is 12 legislative districts here in the county. The chairman came to me and they wanted a resolution passed opposing the proposal by the governor. And as the chairman, I felt that it was important that I entertain that to the Executive Guidance Council so we could go ahead and have open discussion about this. At the same time, my colleague in Pima County, Carolyn Cox, who's the Pima County Republican chairman, was doing the same thing there. So with Maricopa County and Pima County, we represent approximately 75% of the registered voting Republicans in this state. And let me assure you, overwhelmingly, the Republicans in this state are against the governor's proposal. And with your permission, Mr. Chairman, and I will not read the resolutions, but with your permission, I'd like to read the cover letter.
Yes, you may.
Thank you very much. Dated March the 10th, 2013. Dear Arizona Republican Senators and Representatives, the Maricopa County Republican Committee, Executive Guidance Committee, overwhelmingly passed a resolution in opposition to the Governor Brewer's proposed expansion of Medicaid, Obamacare, with 93% of the members voting yes. Please see attachment 1. I invited Messrs. John Arnold and Chuck Coughlin to speak at the meeting on behalf of Governor Brewer and Arizona Representative Carl Seal to speak on behalf of the Arizona representatives and senators in opposition to expanding Obamacare. Mr. Coughlin pretty much read Governor Brewer's March 6, 2013 letter to all of Arizona's Republican precinct committeemen, and Representative Seal used the attached one-page, two-sided summary information flyer entitled "To Expand or Not Expand." After their presentations, there was a lengthy open discussion and Q&A. With no disrespect to Governor Brewer and Senator Pierce, Arizona's grassroots conservative Republican leadership are very educated and knowledgeable on this issue. I'm not going to list or read all of the legislative districts that are within my responsibility, but we are the grassroots conservative leadership of Maricopa County Republican Party, representing approximately 6,400 precinct committeemen at full strength and 707,000 registered Republican voters, according to Maricopa County elections, and that's 62% of Arizona registered Republicans in the state. The MCRC and the Pima County Republican Committee have now passed resolutions in opposition to Governor Brewer's proposed expansion of Obamacare. Together, we represent 75% of the Republican voters in Arizona, and it's my understanding many of the other county Republican committees in Arizona have passed or are in the process of passing their own opposition resolutions. For your convenience, I have also attached Pima County Republican Committee's resolution. Please see attachment 3. In March 2012, the budget report from the Congressional Budget Office, and this is the federal Congressional Budget Office, showed that Medicare and Medicaid costs were expected to more than double between fiscal years 2012 and 2022. The budget projections, which the CBO updated from its January baseline budget projections, found similar trends in Medicare and Medicaid spending. In fiscal year 2012, Medicare spending was expected to stand at $575.7 billion and will jump to more than $1.058 trillion in fiscal year 2022. Due to the increased aging of the country's population, Medicaid costs were projected to increase by even more, due in part to the Patient Protection and Affordable Care Act's expansion of Medicaid. Medicaid spending in the fiscal year 2012 is expected to be around $258 billion, and by fiscal year 2022, the figure will jump to more than $622 billion. Unless Arizona and the other states oppose the expansion of Obamacare, healthcare entitlements will be on track to consume all tax revenues, I repeat, all tax revenues before today's 25-year-olds are even eligible to receive their first dollar. Medicaid expansion is supported by the governor, and the Obama administration is empirically unsustainable. At this writing, the U.S. national debt is almost $16.7 trillion and increasing at an alarming rate. The U.S. national debt will be over $22 trillion by the time Obama leaves office. This insanity of the progressive socialists, liberal Democrats, and Obama has to stop. Do you have children, grandchildren, or great-grandchildren? Ronald Reagan once said, and I quote, "You and I have a rendezvous with destiny. We will preserve for our children this, the last best hope of man on earth, or we will sentence them to take the last step into thousands of years of darkness. Please, please, do not snuff out our children's flame for hope. Please do not continue mortgaging their future." The MCRC-EG, along with the overwhelming majority of Republicans throughout Arizona, now ask you to protect us and future Arizonans by saying no to Brewer's and Obama's fiscal insanity. Respectfully yours, A.J. Faro, Chairman, Maricopa County Republican Committee.
Thank you very much.
And Mr. Chairman, on that note, I'm open for any questions the committee may have.
Questions? Representative Campbell.
Mr. Chair, Mr. Faro, so what is your solution then to this issue? If we're talking about 50,000 Arizonans losing their health care next year, what is your solution to those 50,000 people who are no longer going to have health care?
Mr. Chairman, Representative Campbell, are you talking about the restoration portion of this?
Yes.
Are you talking about the restoration portion of
I
it?
can expand it to the entire population we're talking about, but yes, I'm limiting it to, for this particular question, the 50,000 people who will lose their coverage next year that Mr. Hammer talked about. What do you propose those people do after they lose that coverage?
Mr. Chairman, Representative Campbell, I'm not an expert in healthcare policy.
To that point, I think it'd be just to quickly reiterate the Republican solution, which we've done at the national, which we've advocated at the national and the state level. It's tort reform. It's allowing open competition for private insurance between states instead of creating mini monopolies. We're looking at giving people a choice of various levels of insurance coverage. Not everybody needs a platinum policy. We're looking at higher co-pays to deter unnecessary visits to the offices. We were talking about outcome-based medicine, and I think I would add a large dose of auditing and investigation to get rid of what's a lot of unnecessary testing and questionable billing. So that's basically the free market solution that has served this country well since our founding, and we're hoping to reverse what we consider to be the big government waste, borrow and spend technique.
So, Mr. Chair, I asked the question, asked again. When the Republicans had control of both the U.S. House and Senate and the presidency, how many solutions did they offer? How many times did they propose an overhaul of the healthcare system? And by the way, if you think the healthcare system in the U.S. has been working efficiently, I suggest we have another conversation about that another time.
Mr. Campbell, proposals were made, very little was passed, and I'm not going to apologize, but I certainly will bemoan the lack. But I think this is a new beginning. It's time to start being responsible because the federal debt has never gotten to the ridiculous level that we're at today. We've exceeded 100% of GDP in deficit spending, and we're 550 of total debt. We're in a crisis. We can't afford this fiscal irresponsibility any longer. And I call for a bipartisan effort to get some control on the spending and the giveaways. It's just becoming excessive. And the waste.
So, Mr. Chair, again, well, these are loud. I guess I'll ask you this question since you didn't let Mr. Faro ask this question or answer this question. What is your solution then, starting next year, for the people who are going to lose their health care coverage? What is your solution for those people? Where do they go and what are they going to do if we do not pursue this expansion?
Well, we can certainly start with tort reform in Arizona, and I'd be very happy to co-sponsor some bills with you to get true tort reform in to stop defensive mechanism. And we just cut to contact all of our congressmen, and let's get these greater choice, greater tax write-offs for insurance.
To that point, Mr. Chair.
Representative Crosman.
Representative Campbell, Mr. Chairman, Representative Campbell, what are you going to do when we kick off all of the people who are going to be brought on the system through the expansion, and all of a sudden the circuit breaker may or may not kick in? Are you going to be the one to kick all those who were counting on help, whom you're promising help, that won't be able to all of a sudden be able to have help?
Mr. Chair, Mr. Quasman, no, I won't be kicked unless I'm at the federal level some capacity in the next few years. I won't be kicked off, but I don't think we'll kick them off, Mr. Chair and Mr. Quasman. I believe that the federal government will live up to its obligation on this. I have no concerns about that. In fact, we will take the steps necessary. And there are plenty of other ways to reduce our debt in this country, which I posed a question to both of you, which you refused to answer a few minutes ago to point out. So I guess, again, my question, which is yet to be answered, and Mr. Chair, if you can tell me one person in this state of those 50,000 people that will get health care coverage because of tort reform being passed, I would love to see an example of how that will get them health care coverage. I have yet to see a solution from anybody that opposes this, both here in this state or at the federal level. I've yet to see a solution being offered that will address these people's needs in this state and across this country. And we can sit here and do hypotheticals all day, but I will tell you what, the only attempt to address health care reform in this country is the one that was passed by the Congress and the Senate of this country and by the President and reaffirmed by the vote of the people last year in 2012 when they re-elected Barack Obama. Okay, so again, Mr. Chair, Mr. LaFaro, whoever, I'm going to keep asking this question all day. What do you propose we do with the people who are going to lose their health care coverage next year? I want to see a solution, an alternative to that, because just voting no is not an answer to helping these people out. I want to be very clear. Voting no and jeopardizing people's lives is not an answer to the problems we face in this state or this country.
Members, I guess on both sides of this argument we're becoming a little redundant and circular, and we do have about 35 people who want to speak.
Chair, it would be redundant if somebody actually answered my question.
Yeah, I think I did answer your question. If it's not adequate, then see me tomorrow, and we'll be redundant again. But for now, I'd like to get the people up here to have a chance to speak.
Mr. Chairman, with all of that interaction that was going on, may I make a couple of last comments?
Sorry, but very quickly though, because
I understand.
We're trying to keep the 2 minutes to 10.
Okay, yeah. As I travel the county and the state, I talk to small business people. I know there's small business people in this room. I know that Representative Gray indicated that he's a small business person. There's a lot of small business people that are pulling their hair out with regards to Obamacare and Obamacare Medicaid expansion, and they're still trying to figure out. Some are going to go under. Unfortunately, some of our small businesses are going to go belly up because of Obamacare. And then the other thing is, both you and Representative Gray indicated kind of question whether if there's hospitals here in the valley and in the state are really having a really difficult time in as much of all of this massive expansion to the tune of billions of dollars. And my last comment in closing, and I hate to say this, Jesus had Judas, Republicans have Governor Brewer.